What's up? Welcome to the introductory Who the Hell Are We? Aaron and Neal Omnis Rising show.
We'll have to get some intro music.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So a lot of there's probably a lot of people that are watching this. That have no idea who the fuck these two dudes are. Some of you may know who I am. Some of you may know who Neal is. Some of you may have heard of, you see his press forward thing in the background. You see Omnis Rising back in the background of me. I've got a bunch of geeky stuff behind me. Who the fuck are we, right? What is this thing? What are we doing? My name is Aaron Crow. I've had a long career in cybersecurity and real estate and a lot of different things in my life. But I've also been 350 plus pounds, almost lost my marriage because I wasn't putting in the work and almost ended in divorce. I got 3 kids, live in Texas, all the things. Like, those challenge coins are not from the military. It was not in the military. Neal likes to say I pretend. I do rucking and all the different things, but that's kind of a high level intro of the 5-second or dime tour of Aaron. So Neal, why don't you go, bud?
Yeah, man. I like to tell everybody I'm just a kid from Queens, who just really just got told at a very, very young age by my grandparents that I can do anything that I put my mind to it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. They never said I had to play by the rules. They never said I had to do it the way other people have done it. And I've kind of like prided myself over, building what they call lifestyle by design, living each day as a ceremony in your life, and then ultimately being kind of in this world of, I want to live life on my own terms. I want to get to the end of that journey and recognize that there's like no juice left. I want to squeeze every drop out of this life that I possibly can. And a couple of years ago, I came across this guy Aaron Crow on the internet, and we've been brothers in arms ever since our first meeting. And one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on in this relationship that we have is, while we grew up in very, very different scenarios in life, we share a lot of, you and I share a lot of the same values, man. And it's funny because, like, as this conversation around men out in the world has become kind of like part of our kind of mission and journey together, it's just a funny thing. Like, I have to appreciate like how funny it is, because if you went back, 20, 30 years ago, and the path for dudes was just super different. Like you went to work. You're either a blue collar worker or a white collar person, and you came home at the end of the day, and you were probably a woman was probably in the house raising the kids, and that was her job, and your job was clear. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's now morphed into so much more opportunity for men, but it's also like deconstructed a lot of the things in our lives, because it's like the identity that people have, what they should be investing time, effort, and resources, has opened up this big weird, like, how do you even measure being successful as a man?
Yeah.
And it's just a funny experience. It's a funny experience to be a human right now in 2024.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy. Again, you and I have vastly different backgrounds. Like, you came from Queens, I came from East Texas. I have also, my grandfather was a big influence on me. Also told me I could do whatever I want. My grandfather came through the Great Depression. He had a 3rd grade education because he had to go to work. He didn't have the luxury of going to school. He had to work. And when I mean work, he was picking cotton. They had a dirt floor house. My dad didn't have air conditioning until he was married and bought his own house. He'd never been to a restaurant in his life until he was like 18 and had a job and could afford it himself. So, though we have these vastly different backgrounds and upbringings and situations now. I'm married, I got 3 kids, you're single, you also have kids though. We have so many things in common. Yes, there's a lot of things that we don't agree on, just like in life. Like I'm married. I've been married 15 plus years. My wife and I don't agree on everything, believe it or not, right? Of course, we have a lot in common, just like you and I. You and I have so much in common. And when we got to the root of that, I remember, also seeing you, kind of online. You were part in my Tactical Manhood group. Somebody brought you in. And then we started seeing each other at these conferences, and we realized, hey, we also do cybersecurity stuff together. And there were so many things we did. And it was in San Francisco where you saw me the first time, kind of in passing, and then you sent a message like, hey, are you here? And then we were both going to be at Black Hat in Vegas. And you're like, well, hey, we definitely should meet up. So I remember being in Vegas, going to this bar at the top of this hotel in downtown Vegas on the Strip, overlooking the Strip. It's like 7 o'clock because I think you had an event at 10. So we met up at like 7 or 8. I don't remember what time it was, but it's pretty early, especially in Vegas. And we were like the only 2 motherfuckers there, right? It was just you and me and the bartender. And we grabbed a drink. We took, I think it was, really high-end tequila. We're sipping on that. And then it was 2 of them, and then it was 3 of them. And it was just like from that point on, it's like this bond, this brotherhood created out of this. Like we've talked almost daily ever since then about
man.
And the difference is we're not just talking about drinks, we're not talking about football, we're not talking about any of that stuff. Like we're talking about real shit. Like I lost my job in January, and I was the chief technology officer and didn't see it coming, and the first person I called was you, other than my wife, of course, but I talked to you. You're going through things this week, and we're talking about it. Like I don't have the answers. You didn't have the answers, but sometimes you don't need answers. You just need somebody that you can lean on, somebody that you can reach out to and say, "Hey, I'm struggling." And so many men don't have that outlet. They don't have anyone they can be vulnerable with, be real with, be their true selves. They put up this wall, this barricade, this pretend facade on Instagram and TikTok and all these things that, I drive a Lamborghini or I've got big muscles or my wife is hot and we went to this nice restaurant and I've got a motorcycle and I shoot guns and I've got a beard. Obviously we both have beards. But this beard is not what makes us a man. Like, you don't have to have a beard to be a man. You don't have to shoot guns to be a man. You don't have to, hunt and fish and all these things. You can, but those are not the things that make you a man. But so many men are terrified to and are triggered by us saying, hey, manhood is attacked. Most men are not, they're struggling to show up as a man in their body, in their life, in their world, at work, at home, and just know what that means.
Right. Well, that's where even like the definition of it in 2024 is weird, right? For a lot of people, because it's real easy, it used to be a lot easier. Just right or wrong, it just used to be a lot easier because like you'd look at your father, you'd be like, how does this person show up? And then you'd emulate that person, like good or bad experiences, right? And then maybe you'd learn a little bit more from people in your community and stuff like that. But like that was just the way it kind of was. And it's like this ongoing thing now of now that we get the opportunity to kind of choose, what a lot of people don't realize is like the struggle becomes it's like men are just like balancing these plates and spinning them. Yeah. Like where they're going to be, they want to be the protector of their family. They want to be the provider for their family. They want to run their own businesses. Also, like men want to have their own shit. Like one of the things, like men want to have their own thing, whatever that thing is. Sometimes it's a hobby. Sometimes it's some kind of greater purpose or calling in life. But they all want to have their own thing. And so they end up spinning these plates. And now what's just kind of recently happened a lot is I really struggle with this concept that a lot of men have just thrown in the towel. They have just said, you know what? Either A, their wife or partner has either overwhelmed them or left them, because 70% of all divorces are all started by the woman leaving the man. It crushes the dude, and they don't have the tools or resources, and like there's nothing exciting about recovery. Like that's a big piece of it, is like a lot of us, all because this is all men, are not prepared to deal with scarcity. And so then when they get into the scarcity mindset, it just becomes easier just to collect a paycheck, keep your head down, and like just throw in the towel. Just throw in the towel, and I'm just going to do the bare minimum. And every time that I get overwhelmed and drowning in some kind of bill or mechanism, I'm just going to figure it out. Right? Like, and this like Sigma male behavior is what they're calling it now, is really a problem, because it just dismantles like the community. That's really what it comes down to. And like, what people don't realize now, because I think a lot of people especially men, feel like they've just been let down so many times by other men, that they're like, I just want to align with other men that have been let down. And I call these guys now the Eeyores, because it's kind of like this like woe is me mentality. Like, this is the deck of cards that I've been dealt. I just got to suck it up. Like, this is my story. This is my narrative. And it's just like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. Like you get wrapped up in the social media stories. You get, and we were just talking about before we started this, like, I've been approached often about some of my views being views of toxic masculinity. And like, I laugh, because it's just like, if you take a moment and you listen to the things that you and I have been saying for years now, it's like, it's actually the exact opposite. And unfortunately, like I was watching social media yesterday, and it was interesting because there was these two influencery guys, and they're like good-looking dudes, muscular, got the Lamborghinis, doing the podcast back and forth from each other, and they were talking about like the cost of private jets, the cost of real estate, and something about crypto. I couldn't even pay attention to; it was so bad. But there was a third party who was a high net worth guy, who every time that they said something, he fact checked it, and everything they said was incorrect. Like, the guy was like, "Yeah, when I bought my blah 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 Lamborghini at this price," and he's like, "Ding, that's not how much that Lamborghini's ever costed." And then the guy was like, "When I was shopping for my private jet, ding," and then they like broke down like. So everything that these guys had said was actually incorrect and false. And yet there was like hundreds of thousands of views on this podcast. And then like that just brings up this crazy world that we're in right now, where it's like you could literally watch something and like take it in and be like, oh my gosh, that's the way it is, or that's what it is. And it's completely false.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, I understand why a lot of guys would sit there and be like, you know what, I'm throwing a towel. I don't want to have to like decipher, what's true, what's not true, and stuff like that. But that just creates an argument for being like, I need to be surrounded by people that I know I can trust, and people like that know that when something breaks, I can pick up the phone like you talked about and be like, hey, let me like pick myself out of this scarcity mindset as quickly as possible so that I can get back on track.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's like, you don't get fat overnight. You don't get out of shape overnight. You don't get in these places overnight either, right? And you get in these ruts and complacency, and you get to this place where, the norm, you're so used to being around these, sheep, these, I hate to use those words because it triggers so many people, but, there really are so many beta males that are just there. And I'm not talking down to anyone, but you want to be the hero in your own life. Like, you want to be the hero in your story. And if you're not the hero in your own story, what the fuck's the point, right? There's so many today that are looking for somebody else to solve their problem, whether it's God, it's government, it's religion, it's their wife, it's their company, whatever the thing is. Elon Musk, I mean, whoever it is, they're looking for somebody else to solve their problem. It's that parable of the guy's drowning or his boat sinks and he's in the middle of the ocean and he prays to God, hey, God, save me. And a boat comes by and, hey, but he doesn't want to get in the boat because he's like, no, I'm good. I prayed to God. God will save me. This happens 3 times. Finally, the guy drowns. He ends up in heaven and he's like, God, like, why have you forsaken me? I prayed to you and you didn't save me. He's like, I sent you 3 boats. What more do you want? Like, you just got to get in the damn boat. There's so many men that are that way. Like, why is obesity so rampant in today's society? It's not because of lack of knowledge. Knowledge is there. Nobody, from a knowledge perspective, there's no reason anyone should be overweight. Okay, so what is it then? It's not a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of desire. It's a lack of grit. It's a lack of being uncomfortable. It's a lack of you name it. Like, obviously there are some physical reasons. Obviously people have medical conditions. Most people are just not wanting to do the work. It's a lot easier to sit on the couch. It's a lot easier to hit snooze. It's a lot easier to eat ice cream and burgers and pizza than it is to wake up and go rock, than it is to run a marathon, than it is to do an Ironman, than it is to do any of these things. And that's why masculinity is at stake, right? It's why, I've got 3 kids, 2 of them are boys. Like, it's why I was, excited last night when, my oldest Charlie, he has friends over, and last night he's doing 75 hard right now. So he's got friends that he's brought in. They're coming over to have a sleepover, like hang out it's during spring break. And they're out in the garage. They're going and doing a ruck, and they're working out. They're pumping iron in the garage. And then Carrie and I went to dinner. And then we came back from dinner, and they grabbed the jiu-jitsu mats, and they're upstairs, and they've got boxing gloves on. So they're beating the shit out of each other, and they're rolling jiu-jitsu. Like, they also played video games. They also had VR and all that kind of stuff, but they were also doing these other things, right? And that's part of it. Like, nobody says you can't play video games. Nobody says you can't eat pizza. Nobody says you can't eat ice cream. It's just a matter of what makes you who you are. Like, what is the best version of you as a man? What does that look like? And everybody's version is different. You don't have to grow the beard. You don't have to look like Neal and I. You don't have to be in the military. You don't have to be a police officer. Like, you don't have to, go shoot every weekend and carry a gun all the time. Like, yes, you should be able to take care of yourself, but that doesn't mean that it has to look a certain way. It does mean that you need to be the best version of you, and whatever that looks like, right? And so many men are so triggered. They don't have anybody to reach out to. They don't have anybody like Neal, like myself, that they don't have those connections, that brotherhood, that if Neal's not showing up, I'm going to call him out on it, and vice versa. If I'm not showing up, he's going to 100% say, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is not what you say you want. This is not where you said you wanted to be. So why are you 400 pounds? Like, why are you skipping workouts? Why are you eating ice cream constantly and not doing your rucks? Like, what's going on with you? Because this is not who the man that you told me you wanted to be, and I'm going to fucking hold you accountable for it.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, because I've been really thinking about this a lot lately, because I very much agree with all the things that you just said. But it's like, you have to realize that I think a big piece of this is the fact that societally, we're just, for probably the first time ever, we're going through this experience where most men, unless, right, some other weird health issue happens, they're all going to live to be 85, 90 years old.
Yep.
And it's almost like if you think about it, if you go back, you and I talk about this all the time. It's like, I remember being like a kid, and I remember being a kid at like a baptism or like a communion or a birthday party, and all like your great uncles, right, show up, and there's like, they're like in their 50s. They got a Budweiser in one hand and a Marlboro Red in the other, and they look like they're on death's door at like 56 years old. Mm-hmm. Right? And like everybody was like that. And so like there was this concept of like you were going to work to a certain point in your life. You were going to retire when you were like between 63 and 65, and then you were going to die by the time you were 72.
Correct.
And now I really think it is like I think that like lifestyle was a proponent for like get married in your 20s, buy a house in your 30s, get your professional gear on track, professional life on track in your 40s, and then have your retirement party when you were like 60 and then be done with it all.
Yep.
Right? And so like there was a plan, right? Like insurance policies were built for those plans, and life insurance and healthcare plans were all built for this concept. And now you got men living into their 80s and 90s, and that model is just not clear for a lot of people. But I can say, like, especially for men 35 to 55, it's like your biggest struggle really is you're not. And I'm saying this as a guy who's dating somebody but not married like you've been for 15 years. At that stage of your life, the partnership, the relation, you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like that will make it better. Then you get into this weird thing now where it's like, I don't care what anyone's stances on religion is, but I think you have to have faith in something.
Right.
And then between having the right level of intimacy in your life and the right relationship, and then having faith in kind of life is happening for you in some way, shape, or form, you can kind of get into this place of being like, all right, what do I need to work on? Because what's taking me further away from those things? And the thing that I keep on coming up with over and over and over again with guys especially is like, I'm going to be 46 next week. I only want to have the problems that a 46-year-old is supposed to have.
Sure.
I want my knees to bother me a little bit once in a while. I want to feel a little bit more sore when I go to the gym. I want to have to think a little bit strategically about my diet because my metabolism. Like, I want 46-year-old fucking problems. I don't want to be whining about how to make money or whining about why don't people like me or why don't I have friends or stuff like that, or giving up on people, which is like the problem of like a 25-year-old man or even like a 16-year-old man. And what I find over and over and over again is that men who struggle in that 35 to 55 range, typically you're not going to have problems of a 35 or a 55-year-old man. You're going to have the problems of a 16-year-old boy who just didn't have the right opportunity to grow up in the right way. And you're going to have the problems of the 75-year-old. Really just around, I don't want to be fucking 70 years old and have those fucking problems.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to have the problems of the 75-year-old, right? So we see both sides. We see men that are in their 40s, their 30s and their 40s. They're having problems from a financial and a maturity level of men or boys in their in their teenage years, but physically they're having problems on from the 70s. Like, again, I know people in their 70s and they're like on death's doorstep. They're basically just waiting to die. They can't walk across the room. They can't sit down. They can't walk upstairs. And these are not because they have massive health problems. Most of them are just because they don't exercise. They don't do these things. And, they're just waiting until the end, right? And their mindset is, well, I'm old. I'm supposed to be this way, right? Where that's bullshit. Like, there's also 72, 75-year-old people that are, doing CrossFit competitions or doing running marathons and are, bodybuilding and all these different things. So you get to create the life. Obviously there's adverse, people have hip replacements and knee replacements and physical and medical issues, but you can still make the best of whatever situation you're in, or you can sit down and wait to die. Right. And too many people, unfortunately, especially men in this world, too many are just at a very early age giving up. And they've sat in the corner and they're just waiting to die. They're just letting life pass them. They're dealing with whatever is given to them, and they're complaining about it all the time. They're unhappy. They don't have friends. They don't have not real friends, not men that will, not brotherhood. Maybe they have friendships, but it's all surface level bullshit. They're talking about sports and beer and you know, the waitress's tits, right? That's all they care about. And they don't get beyond that, and they're not building things. Like I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking, and you and I talk about this all the time, right? If you're friends, if you're just talking about things that happened in the past, or the, you know, hey, we, you know, whether it be your physical, hey, I was a star athlete in high school, or, you know, I did this one thing one time. If you're not planning for the future and you're not building things together or talking about the things that you want to build tomorrow, what are you doing? Like you're literally living in the past. Like, instead of planning for the future, instead of, hey, I want to go do this, and I want to build this, and I want to build this business, and I want to get my body in better shape, and I want to go do these activities and these functions, and I want to take my kids. And if you're not excited and living and planning and dreaming, then you're living in the past, and you're just letting shit happen to you.
I think the living in the past thing is wild. I mean, like, I recognize that I'm a little bit of an extreme example because, you know, I graduated high school, joined the Marine Corps, traveled all over the world, did a whole bunch of cool things, lived in Japan, right? Lived in multiple states, and then a bunch of years in the corporate world, travel all over the world, travel all over the world. So I might be a little bit of an extremist in this, but like, I remember when I turned 40, and still, it just happened recently. I had someone on Facebook reach out to me that I went to high school with, and they were like, remember, like, blah, 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 blah in our senior year? And I was like, no. But it was such a big thing. And I was like, literally, I've done so much in my life that I know. That memory maybe is repressed somewhere down in the data storage in the basement, but, like, I don't remember that thing at all. And it's like, just because of the reach on social media I have, probably like once a month, I'll have somebody reach out from when I was in high school and be like, remember me? And I'm literally like, no. Well, I was the person who sat 3 seats across from you in history class. No, I've just focused my life on forward. And again, I want every drop of this life to come out, and I recognize though, like it's very hard, right? Like we have to highlight, it is extremely hard for people to actively kind of choose, right, to do something differently than the majority does. And I think that's the big thing. It's also a struggle for a lot of people nowadays. Is like, for the most part, whether you grew up in a bad environment, or, you know, or a great environment, there's enough systems and programs and facilities that, like, in theory, you could go to the grocery store when pasta is, you know, boxes are $10 for 10 boxes, and you can eat pasta every day for the rest of your life. Now, I don't think you're going to have a great life doing that. You're going to hate yourself. But, like, there's no, like, hunting for your meal tomorrow. You know, there's no, you know, war tribe in the next village that's contemplating coming and taking your shit. And so it's just like, there are many of us who then turn around and then go, you know what, that's not the path I'm going to go on. Whatever my current status or situation is, I want better, and I'm going to go do this on my own terms. And those people do everything from starting candle businesses to building communities and platforms, to building mobile applications, to taking whatever profession you're in and then going, you know what, I can make more money if I do it on my own. And then, like, it's not necessarily a money thing. It's more about a resources thing, because what I've realized also over time is, like, and this is for anybody who's listening to this, it's like really the only thing that gets in the way of you being happy is your lack of resources. Like really, like if you have enough resources, and money is a resource, your relationship is a resource, your time is a resource, the people around you is a resource. So like it's real simple, like almost too simple, that if you can accept the fact that the people you surround yourself with are important to how you feel, that how you spend your time is important, right? Money is a resource, and your relationship is a resource. Mm-hmm. And I would even go as far as say your faith is a resource. Those 5 things. And if you go, all right, I'm going to focus on those 5 things for 90 days, and I'm going to avoid all the noise, I guarantee you'll be better in 90 days. Like I've done it myself multiple times. To been like something gets effed up in life, and I'm like, all right, I was obviously not focused in the right direction. Let's regroup myself. Let's focus. Let me go get some time with some friends. Let me go get some partner time. Let me focus on ways to make money. Let me get control of my time, and let me think about it like this. And then, like literally, you just focus on it, and all of a sudden, at the end of 90 days, you're like, why did I let myself get there?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so, you can do so much in a very short amount of time, right? You know, obviously you've heard my story 1,000 times, Nacho Dad. You know, I was 350 pounds, right? You know, and this wasn't that long ago. In a very short amount of time, I made changes. Same thing with my marriage. Like it wasn't that long. It took a long time to get there. It's not going to be solved overnight. But you can make massive change in a very short amount of time. Like the way that you attack things, especially if you surround yourself with people that will challenge you and hold you accountable, right? It's you know, there's a reason why things like CrossFit are popular, right? It's because you go harder when you're with other people, right? When you're working out by yourself, if you have great discipline, maybe it's perfect. Some people really do a lot better in a group environment. It's why the Peloton, you know, group classes all around, all these different things, they have this group element. It's why when I go ruck, like I love doing the community thing. You know, we have a rucking group that we do, you know, where people come and you do it together. So you're getting a fitness thing, but you're having this brotherhood, right? It's the same thing with building a business or any of the things that you want to do. Doing it with and being surrounded by people that have similar aspirations. Not that they want to build the same business, not that they have the same relationship, but that they want to improve. They have that. They're not in a lacking mindset. They're not in they're in a growth mindset, right? They're looking to improve themselves in all of those areas, from physical, spiritual, relationships wise, you know, business wise, financial wise, like all of the things. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean you're going to be, you know, next level on everything. But, you know, again, going back to the time travel thing, I think being in masterminds, being surrounded by people that are in there, it helps you time travel, right? You're gonna accomplish things so much faster than if you do them by yourself. The other piece is that if you're not, then you're stuck in the past. If you were the same person that you were in high school and you're about to be 46, that's a problem, right? You were fucking 18 years old. Now you're 46. If you're the same person, like when I remember when I first went back to, you know, my high school city, when Carrie and I moved back to that city, most people didn't recognize me. I had to introduce myself. And yes, I'd grown. I was a small kid, but still, I was just a different person. And many of them are the same people they were, and they're still talking about, you know, their senior year, this game when they ran this touchdown run or whatever, right? That was the highlight of their life. And you hear it with military guys too, right? You hear that, you know, they did this thing and there was this event or whatever, and that was the highlight of their life. It's not to take away from those things. It's just that, okay, you've done it. It's like all those patches that are on my wall or the challenge coins over there or the medals that are there. Like those things, yes, they happen, but they're done. They're in the past. Now what are you going to do, right? I can't run a marathon once in 1982 and say, well, I'm a marathon runner. When's the last time you ran a marathon? 1982. You're not a marathon runner. You were a marathon runner in 1982, but you're not a marathon runner anymore.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think that part of it is also obviously the way the education system is built, right? So we get kind of ingrained in that. Then there's the stories that we kind of tell ourselves, and I think it's like it's wild though, because there's just so much opportunity now, like because of the internet, and there's so much opportunity. There's just so much opportunity to like consider making money, in different ways and achieving different things, and you wouldn't even know where to begin to look when you and I were kids, like you'd have to break out the yellow telephone book and go searching for things in the telephone book to find where anything was, and now it's like, oh, you want to learn how to run a 5K? There's a course teaching you how to run a 5K. Like, and I look at it even in my Ironman journey, how I thought it was fascinating, because I was 200 and almost 250 pounds when I decided I was going to run the Ironman, and then I started like Google around on the internet, and I laughed because like there's a website. I'm not going to give the real URL because I just don't remember it, but it was like www.howtorunanironman.com, and literally it was like 6 months. Like here's this Ironman, and for anybody who doesn't know, like you either run 70 miles in a day, bike, run, and swim, or you do 140 on the big one. Both of them are monumentous tasks that when you look at it, you're like, I don't know how these people do these things. And at one point, I'm sure when it started, that was extremely true, because you'd have to be a lunatic to train like that.
Yeah.
But then now, fast forward 2023, you go www.howtotrainforironman.com, and they literally have broken it down into like 6 days a week. Here's your training. Here's how many calories to eat. Here's what you should do. Here's the gear. Here's the process. Here's this. And I remember very clearly, vividly, the first time that I bicycled from my house to New York City, which was 109 miles to the World Trade Center. And I was like, I cannot believe that I just did that. But it was very, very doable. My point being is like, it was actually, the training up to it was easy, step by step by step. And I did it because I had a community and people inspiring me. I was working with an endurance group. I had a coach who had done a bunch of Ironmen, giving me kind of ways to get better, quicker, faster, more efficiently there through systems and processes. And the website was telling me everything. Like, you could do that with effing anything now. You want to make this is the big thing we talked about, the 100-man fly-in. It's like, you want to make $1 million a year? Google it.
Yeah.
Then you got to do the work. You want to be a good man. You want to show up as a healthy man. Google, what does a healthy man look like? Take some inventory in your life. And then if there's things that you're missing, be like, all right, well, if I'm not naturally approachable, that's a big one, I think, for guys, is like a lot of guys are like, nobody ever talks to me, or like I'm a dick, or people think I'm an asshole. And it's like, yeah, you want to know how you get away from that? You stop being a dick, you stop being an asshole. And rather than not being approachable, like this is very much like, for years, I was very unapproachable. I've got this big, tattooed, bearded kind of demeanor, but there was a period in my life where before I got my teeth fixed and fixed a bunch of my inner shit, like I was very unapproachable. And the way that I conquered that was I started approaching people. And that was like an active choice for me to start doing that rather than just sit there in my own shit all the time.
It's so simple, right? All this stuff. Can you do it on your own? Could you have could you have done an Ironman by yourself? Of course you could have. Would you have been as probable to be successful? No. Why is that? Because you're learning from the mistakes of others. Like instead of going and trial and erroring, you were able to use the lessons from people that have been there and done that. Like they've been there, they've trained, they've ran the marathons, they've rode the bikes that far, they've swam that far, they've done all three. That's the thing about an Ironman that makes it so difficult, right? Is most people, they run or they swim before they bike. They don't do all three, especially in one day at one event, right? Those distances. That's why it's such a monumental thing to do. But all of these people these coaches and these people that you work with, they've done it, right? So they know how to build over the years. So they built this. So you can learn from that. And the problem that I see, and we talk about this all the time, is so many men think, oh, well, I'm just going to do it on my own. I don't need that. I don't need you to tell me how to be a man. I don't need you to tell me how to run a marathon. I know how to fucking run. Of course you do. Go do it your own then, right? Like, why are you here? Why are you wasting my energy telling me that you don't need what we're talking about? Like, if you don't, then go away, right? Unfortunately, or not even necessarily unfortunately, well, I would say it this way. Unfortunately, so many men think that way, and I see that as a very short-sighted perspective. I've opened myself up to being coachable, right? And go all the way back to Pee Wee or Little League baseball. You can have a kid that is a great athlete, and they can hit the ball, they can run fast, they can tackle, they can shoot the jumper, whatever. But if they're not coachable, I don't want that player on my team. Right? I don't want the kid that is just a natural athlete but is not a good team player, that is not coachable, is not willing to do what's best for the team and grow and have that growth mindset. I know how to do it. I don't need your help. I'm better than you. I don't need guidance, right? Those people are not good people to be on your team. They're also going to hit a limit that they can't overcome, right? You look at Jordan. You look at, Tiger Woods. These guys are the elite of the elite. They have coaches. And they always have had coaches. Why is that? Because they were all natural athletes. They were all the best at what they do, yet they still hired coaches because they wanted to have an edge. They hired fitness coaches. They hired mindset coaches. They hired strength and nutrition coaches. They hired coaches for fucking everything because they knew that I can get a little bit of a nugget that's going to get me 0.001% better than I am today, that's going to give me the edge over my competition, that's going to give me the edge over myself. But so many men look at it as, who the hell are you to tell me? Right. Like, you're no better than me. Who the hell are you? Like, I didn't say that I was better than you. I just said that I've done this one thing and I've learned some lessons from it. And I'm happy to share that stuff with you. Does that mean I have a perfect marriage? No. Does that mean that my wife and I don't fight, or that I have, I'm constantly perfect on my health and my fitness and my diet? No. It just means that I've been through the shit and I can talk about it and tell you the things that I've learned along the way that can potentially help you to get where I got instead of having to go through all of the struggles that I went through.
I love this direction because it brings back to a story that on my podcast last year, we did an interview with one of the strength and conditioning coordinators for a Division I college. And, you're spot on. And what's interesting is I think one of the biggest challenges, and you mentioned this also, is unless you have been in some kind of coaching scenario as a child athlete, or maybe in the military, maybe in the job workforce, there's some coaching scenarios evolving now. But it's very, very hard to become coachable because you just don't have any examples of that. And, in the world of football, what's fascinating is the coaches go around, right, at the high school level, or the college coaches are all flying around checking out the prospects, and they see the student athlete perform. Right? They're like, I want that one on my team. I want that quarterback. I want that lineman. I want that defensive end. And then when they bring them to the school for the training, the very first thing they do is give them to the strength and conditioning coordinators for 3 days. And what you don't realize is while the coach of the team who owns the playbook, and every coach should have a playbook for you, they say, okay, we need to do the work now. And these strength and conditioning coordinators will take these athletes, right, through a heavy workout, and they will constantly correct them during the workouts. And at the end of that 3-day trial, the strength and conditioning coordinators will get to vote, and they will say that, thumbs up or thumbs down on this person. And it's based off of one simple thing, that when they make corrections to these athletes, were they able to implement them? Because will they be able to take corrective coaching and get better? No matter what level they're operating at, will they be able to improve? And that's the difference between a championship team and a team that's mediocre and just kind of has a bunch of players on it.
Yeah.
So
it's I don't care where you are in your life. You can always get better. You can always be coached. You should always be able to be coached. Like, my marriage is currently in the best place it's ever been. I didn't know this where we are existed, right? And better than when we first met, better than honeymoon phase. Like, all of the things are just better. Does that mean I get to just stop working on it and coast? No, because what's going to happen? Then shit, right? It's going to go downhill. Same thing in my fitness. Like, if you stop pushing and you stop growing, then you're going to lose it, right? If you stop working out, you're going to get, and you eat pizza, you're going to get fat. If you stop exercising, if you stop working on your marriage, if you stop focusing on finances, if you stop, why do they say the hungry people are the ones that, are the most successful in business, right? It's because when your back's against the wall, you don't have a choice. I love the meme or whatever, like, the drug addict, the heroin addict that doesn't have any money and needs a hit. They don't ever just say, well, I don't have any money, I guess I won't get high today, right? They find a way, right? I know it's a bad analogy, but they do. Like, they find a way. They go steal shit. It's not the greatest, model of who I want to be, but the point is like, you can find an excuse or you can find a way. And I know that's, something people say all the time, but it's true. Like, I tell my kids this all the time. I tell my wife this. I tell myself this. Like, I can sit here and one of the guys says this all the time on my calls, but he says, I've got poopy pants. Okay, everybody's had an accident or whatever, but you get the concept of poopy pants. Do you want to sit in it, or do you want to, like, it happened? Period. Are you going to sit in it and just stay in that place? Or are you going to get up, go wash yourself off, change your drawers, and get back to life? Like, are you going to just focus on that thing that happened? Or are you going to get over it and do something about it? Like, you lost your job. It's the Jocko thing that I sent you the other day, right? It's you lost your job. Good. Your biggest customer isn't paying his bill. Good. You got laid off. Good. Your wife and she wants a divorce. Good. You got to have knee surgery. Good. Like, all of these things you can take and put a positive spin on. And what I mean by that is you can decide how you're going to react. Mm-hmm. It is your choice how you respond.
I think that is so important to build that kind of emotional muscle. And I recognize that it's like it's a focused effort into being like, where I am right now is not where I want to be. Right. And being able to move through that. And I want to add in there, it wouldn't be one of the Neal and Aaron calls if I didn't say something that was controversial. So, but I feel very drawn to this because there's been a handful of times in the past couple of months where I've been talking to men about getting some coaching. And we talk for a couple of conversations, and then it turns out that they end up going to work with a women coach. And it's really, really fascinating when you get into that, because the example I always give people is like, men or women we're just wired different. We are just wired differently. And the best example is if a woman is on stage and she's large and overweight and she's talking about the struggle of being judged for her body, even a skinny woman in the audience is gonna agree and be like, yes, I understand your pain.
Right.
But if a large man is on stage talking about his struggle with pain, the guy who's super skinny in the audience is probably going to go get a cheeseburger because he's bored.
Right.
And, like, as crazy as it is, what men don't realize, and it's their lack of trust is the problem, is that we are kind of hardwired to want to emulate success, right? Some people say success leaves clues, and we want to follow it, right? So we see men who are built differently than us, and we ask, "What are you guys doing? What's your workout?" Right? Like we see other men making good money, and we will go, "Well, what's he doing to make money?" Right? Like maybe I need to get in on that. Now, you put 10 women in front of the average man, and you have them tell that woman tell you their story. We are hardwired to not go, I want to be like her when I grow up. Like Oprah is fucking famous, right?
Yeah.
I've never in my life been like, I want to be like Oprah when I like you get a book, you get a book, you get a book. But like I've never been like, I want to be like Oprah when I grow up.
Yeah.
You know, and like there's never been a point where I can look at a woman and be, and it's just a matter of like, it's not even shaming the woman, but if that's the case, then the reality is that men need men. We need men who will hold us accountable to things without judgment. And when we drop the ball or miss the shot or fall flat on our faces for trying, we want somebody to pick us up and be like, yeah, like I hear you, that must have sucked. But let's kind of keep on going here towards the prize. And you're never going to get that from a stronger source than a man that you trust.
Yeah.
Like you're never going to get that.
It's the same thing in parenting. You know, Carrie and I were talking about this the other day, but you know, there's a reason why there's a yin and yang. There's a reason why women and men are different. Again, a controversial topic in 2023 for whatever reason. But you know, Carrie and I don't look at things the same way. When our kids fall and skin their knee, she's running over there. Oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, get up, you're fine, right? You know, we were talking the other night, and my now 20-something year-old nephew, back in the day, he was his mom. He was raised single mom. So he didn't have a male, real role model and influence in his life, at least at this time for some of the things, right? Anyways, long story short, we were at a restaurant, and he needed to go to the restroom, and I was going to the restroom anyway, so I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you. That, he was probably, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, maybe even 12. It was a busy place, didn't want the kid to go to the bathroom by himself. So I escort him to the bathroom. And he gets there, and it was a two-holer. So there was a urinal and there was a stall, and somebody was in the stall, and he was
That's
like, "Well,
some Texas shit. You called it a two-holer?
A two-holer, yeah."
That's some Texas shit.
So there was somebody in the stall. So I'm like, "Well, he's like, "Well, I can't go." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Do you have to go number 1 or number 2?" And he's like, "Just number 1." I'm like, "Okay, well, just go right there." He's like, "I can't." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I can't sit down there." And I'm like, No. Pull your pants down, pull your little thing out, aim it over there, and go. And he just kind of looked at me like nobody had ever said that was okay. At home, his mom had always wanted him to pee sitting down because he didn't pee on the seat, right? It's easier. That's the way she does it. Like, so he'd never had, it seems so simple. And now he laughs about it and thinks, "Oh, Uncle Aaron taught me to pee standing up, all those years ago," and it's a funny story. But it just shows that without little things, and it's a little silly thing, no big deal, but it's real. Like, it's a reason why Charlie's doing 75 hard, and my daughter is tough, and they need that yin and yang. They need the mom to be soft, and they need the dad to be hard. And her to make me a little softer and me to make her a little harder, right? And they need that yin and yang of parenting, of influence, right? And the challenge today is so many men aren't even being a man in their own lives. So the woman is having to step into her masculine because he's not doing it. So she's trying to play more roles on the masculine side, and it just doesn't work, right? It really does not work. The man needs to be the masculine. That doesn't mean that the woman can't. Nobody's saying a man's better than a woman. That's not what we're fucking saying. It's just there's different things. Like, it's not like go in the kitchen and cook. I cook more than my wife does. It's not this is the thing that you have to do because you're a female. Like, it's not that. It's that there are things that I look at things differently than my wife does. Like, I want to go do the adventure. I want to, let the kids go out and just, fall out of the tree. Like, you're fine, right? You're not dead. Nothing's broken. Get over it, right? And that's not how she is. But we need that in this world, and unfortunately, there's a lack of it, which is why you and I feel called to do this. And because we've experienced it and benefited from it ourselves, we want more. I want a strong world for my kids to grow up in, right? I want my daughter to have men that she can choose from. I want my son, Charlie wants to go to the military. I want him to have other men young men that he can be in a brotherhood with, fight with, stand, arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder with, and not be like, upset because they don't have, a latte in, Afghanistan or wherever the hell they happen to be, at the time, right? It's just, it's the world that we're getting into, changing standards and all that kind of stuff. Like, obviously, we continue to go into controversial topics here, but it's where we are today.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is, we're coming up on the hour, so we'll wrap this up here, but this is the type of conversations that we need to have more often. And I think, like, there is this, like, weird thing around awareness for, I think, the parents to realize that, like, I would say most children, most adults now, at some point were probably over-mothered and under-fathered. It was just a generational thing of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And, we've all been over-mothered and under-fathered in some way, shape, or form. Or another version of that. And I think it's like, takes a moment, especially when you have kids, to be like, am I going to do this differently than the example that I have? And if the answer is yes, then it's a really good opportunity to do so. I mean, like, I'll be super honest, transparent. Like, I had an absent father in my life for years, and so I have no examples, or my way of training myself to engage with my children differently has become, what would my father have done? And the answer is, my father did nothing. Oh, so I'm going to do something.
Right.
And literally, like, every single time that I walk myself through that process, it always plays out better.
Yeah.
Like that may be a little bit of an extreme tool, but, like, really, it's like, your examples are always great examples. Even the lack of good example is still an example of what not to do. You just got to be able to have the awareness there to be like, wait, what's the answer I'm trying to get to? What would be the best thing to do? What would my mom or my dad have done in that situation? They would have done this. All right, that is not the best way to handle that. I'm going to do the opposite of that, or another thing, or I'm going to learn from somebody. And then it always works out that it always is a positive. It's always a positive in that example.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it happens in marriage. You end up in a divorce. Look at people who've been divorced and their relationship immediately after that divorce. The partner that they choose, whether they get married or not, is almost the polar opposite of their previous spouse. Almost every time, right? It's just they go for exactly all the things they didn't like about their previous partner. They look for the exact opposite in their new partner, right? And they don't necessarily. The problem with that is if you don't also remember the good things. Like, there was a reason you got with this person most of the time. So what are the positive things? So if you ignore the positives and only focus on not doing the negatives, you can miss a lot of good things and overlook the negative things in the new partner, which also ends in disaster because, I wanted them to be, home and not working, or I wanted them to not cheat on me, but now they're not sexual, or whatever those things are. So, like you said, though, we're at the top of the hour. Want to respect everybody's time. We're going to continue to do these things and have these conversations because I think it's needed.
Yeah, man.
I think it's valuable. Not to mention that it just sharpens our sword as we continue to bounce things off of each other and continue to have these conversations that we do. It's great to have the benefit of allowing others a little insight into the mind of Aaron and Neal, as terrifying as that may be sometimes.
Glad we did this, man. We'll see you at the next one.
Yes, sir.